Welcome back to the final scenario that we will complete in this webinar, Gifted Identification Assessment Practices. Please locate the body of evidence for Justin. This scenario might present your team with a little more challenge when it comes to gifted identification. Before we meet Justin, I'd like to introduce you to his teacher, Mr. Fields. Mr. Fields teaches 5th grade at a kindergarten through 8th grade school where 70% of the students are free and reduced lunch. Mr. Fields asked to discuss Justin at their next RTI meeting for the following reasons. I am concerned about a student who is continuing to fall asleep in class, seems to lack friends, is always very sad and very introverted, and is not demonstrating much growth in my class this year in any subject except possibly science. At the next RTI meeting, the coordinator asks Mr. Fields to share what he knows about Justin. Well, he's a Hispanic male in my 5th grade class. I believe this is the 3rd school of his attendance. He has frequent absences, and his parents didn't even bother to attend fall conferences, but I do understand his parents are going through a divorce. The team decides to review his data. Back in 3rd grade, when he first entered this new school, Justin was given the Naglieri Nonverbal Cognitive Assessment. He scored at the 95th percentile on this assessment. Based on that score, his classroom teacher was asked to complete the Normed Reference Observation Scale, SIGS. The teacher ranked Justin accordingly. The 70th percentile for general intellectual, 65 for language arts, 70 math, 85 science, 65 for social studies, 90 for creativity, and 35 for leadership. It was also noted in his records that a parent SIGS was sent home but was never returned. This year in 5th grade, the team examines his Normed Reference Achievement Score for STAR. The reading score shows a 78th percentile at the beginning of the year, and for math, 86th percentile. The last 2 years, his state assessments demonstrate that he is proficient medium in reading and dropped to proficient low in 4th grade, is proficient low in writing, and has been consistently proficient high in math. A member of the RTI team asks, well, what happened after he took the NNAT in 3rd grade? And looking at the files, the RTI coordinator states, well, the SIGS was given to the teacher, but his achievement data and the SIGS data did not support identification, and of course that parent form was never returned, so no formal identification was ever made. The RTI coordinator determines next steps, which should include Mr. Fields interviewing Justin about what he perceives are his strengths and interests. Mr. Fields asked Justin to stay in from recess for just a few minutes the next day, and he asked Justin, what do you think are your strengths and interests? Justin responds in the following way. Well, I think I'm really good at dance. I like to dance, but it makes me different than everyone else in my class. I also like Legos, and I build things all the time at home. I check out books from the library, and I try to make the buildings and airplanes I find in the books. I get to watch Bill Nye the Science Guy and Mythbusters on TV because Mom only lets me watch educational TV. Actually, I try to do some of the experiments that I see on TV, but once I got in trouble because I blew something up in the kitchen. Mr. Fields is very surprised to hear Justin likes to dance. He decides to talk to the PE teacher after school that day. The PE teacher responds in the following manner. Yeah, Justin is very quiet and he just always seems sad. He really keeps to himself. But now that you've mentioned it, he's probably one of the most coordinated and limber students I've ever had. Well, you know, dancing's not in our curriculum, but let me ask him to stay after class a few minutes and maybe he can show us some of his moves. At the next RTI meeting, the coordinator says, Mr. Fields, tell us what more you learned about Justin. Well, Mrs. Johnson and I observed Justin dance, and I have to say, I don't know a lot about dance, but he's pretty incredible. He has an ability that I guess we've never seen before. He told me that he liked science, and so I went back and I looked at my science labs, and I realized how very high level his thinking is and how creative he was on his labs. I guess I didn't even realize he had the highest lab grades in my class until I actually looked. So I asked him if he would like to join the science club after school, but he said he can't because he takes the bus home after school. Well, the RTI coordinator states this is a dilemma. You know we don't offer dance in our district, and our community is pretty limited in dance opportunities for children. Now, we do have that science fair coming up, but we have a school policy that only students who participate in science club can enter in the science fair. Before your group begins your discussion about Justin, review this last pathway for identification. To identify a student in talent aptitude, the student must demonstrate exceptional ability as measured by a performance evaluation, a normed reference observation scale, and a criterion or normed reference test. In the event a criterion or normed reference test are not available, 2 performance evaluations are required along with the observation scale. Now, pause this webinar and your team should discuss what should be your next steps for Justin. Go ahead and pause the webinar here.